Welcome back to JW.org News, the rest of the story. This is news that you will never see on JW.org. So what's happening yesterday is that JW.org lost to the Supreme Court in British Columbia of Canada. So that's our far western province. And it was quite an interesting case. It wasn't. It was just some records. Some publishers left, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. They wanted their records. You can't get your records out of the organization. Like, what if you wanted to see something on how they handled a case that you were in on? Like, I want to get my records as well, but you can't get your records. Why? Well, we're going to get into that. And we're going to see what they told our Supreme Court here in Canada. So let's get right into the article. It's I've got a couple of articles on this. It's actually been covered by watching the Watchtower. So watching the Watchtower, they actually watch the Watchtower 24 hours a day, night and day. They're always watching the Watchtower. They pull up news articles and they throw it out for the public to see. And I use a lot of their stuff. I now see they're over 1,000 subscribers. So thanks to you guys for keeping us all going and subscribing. That's just great. Now, I noticed also the Vancouver, this was carried by a couple news agencies in BC. And this is one here. BC witnesses must hand over former members' files. Now, before I get into the article, I just want to read out of this article. I had it highlighted. And this is completely Catholic clergy. These are the lines they use right here. This is what the Watchtower said, the Watchtower's lawyer. The respondents' uncontracted evidence is that the elders are ecclesiastical appointees. Have you ever heard of that in the Jehovah's Witness organization? That elders are an ecclesiastical appointee? Barker said in particular, the elders say they did not prepare the records as part of their responsibilities to the congregations. Rather, they prepared them as part of a sacred ecclesiastical duty to God to help restore erring ones. Can you believe that? And maintain the scripturally, moral, and spiritual integrity of our congregations in the collective sense of the religious denominations of Jehovah's Witnesses. I can't believe they use stuff like this in the courts. This is crazy. We're going to read, I noticed also the Humanist, the BC Humanist Association got involved. And the president of the association was there. And he got involved on this. It says the BC Human Association was intervened in the case, applauds the court's commitment to balancing privacy and other fundamental rights. Ian Bushfield, executive director of the BC Humanist Association. So they were also there. So this was a big case. It had a lot of publicity here in Canada. Okay, so this has been going on for a bit. Finally, it's done. We're going to get into the article. The BC Jehovah's Witnesses lose the court battle over disclosing records on two ex-members. Documents about the break with the church must be turned over to Privacy Commissioner, judge says. So this is how they got around it. They said, yeah, you got to turn it over to the Privacy Commissioner. How do we know there's anything ecclesiastical in there unless we read it? So the Privacy Commissioner is going to get it. The Supreme Court ruled to upheld the order requiring the Jehovah's Witness congregation in Coldstream, Grand Forks, to turn over the records containing personal information about two former members to the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner. So that's a big win. Big win for the BC Supreme Court. They ruled against the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was Monday. Justice Stephen Wilson upheld an order requiring the Coldstream Grand Forks congregation to disclose records concerning these ex-members and their break with the church. The Jehovah's Witnesses has argued that the sealed records contain confidential religious discussions between church elders about membership matters, and releasing them would violate their rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But the judge disagreed, saying that any violation of the congregation's religious freedoms in this case was reasonably justifiable in a free, democratic society. While production of the disputed records to the commissioner is not an insubstantial breach of the congregation elders' right to religious freedoms under the 2A of the Charter, it nonetheless furthers the interests of the society as a whole by ensuring access to their personal information, Wilson wrote. Yeah, like, why wouldn't we as ex-members have right to see how they judged us in that judicial committee? What if we needed to hire a lawyer and take the, we have a right to those records. We spent all that time there. So yeah, you can get your records. So they're arguing the confidentiality of it. He pointed out that the order did not require the congregation to release the records to the former members who'd requested them, but only to the OIPC to determine whether they should be released under the Personal Information Protection Act. So basically, they kind of called BS on it. They go on about this ecclesiastical stuff to God and how this is so the commissioner wants to see that. They want to see this ecclesiastical whatever to God that they're having these records, and they'll decide if the personal information, they might release part of it and part of it not. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Now, the law regulates that the collection, the use, and disclosure of the personal information by the private organizations like churches. So this kind of is a case ruling. Now, all these churches, any of the churches, you want to get your records out of them, you can get your records out of them. And there's a case law now. The judge says the duties to disclose imposed by the law are meant to give British Columbians some measure of control over their personal information. The requirement to disclose information is a tool available to individuals to hold organizations accountable for the collection, use, and disclosure of personal information. And it also serves as a deterrent to misuse and allows individuals some measure of control over their personal information, Wilson wrote. And that's an interesting point. How are we to say that they're not going to use that information in a negative way? So if I know what they have, yeah, then I can hold them accountable for what they say. There's things like slander. Now, the BC Humanist Association intervened in the case and is applauding the outcome. An individual's right to privacy is crucial, and we're pleased to see the court recognize the importance of upholding that right, the organization's executive director, Ian Bushfield, said in the news release. Constitutional challenge to the law. The original requests for the information came from Gabriel Liberty Wall, who used to belong to the congregation in Grand Forks, and Gregory Lai Westgrade, who was part of the Coldstream congregation according to the judgment. I don't know if that's the same Wall that was in Calgary. I'm not sure. I know I covered the article, but I don't think it is. Could be. Who knows? It's a common name. Now, the two men independently asked the congregations for the records containing their personal information in 2020. So this is going back 3 years. And both were told they could not see documents concerning their disassociation from the Jehovah's Witnesses. Wall and Westgard turned to the OIPC, but the congregations told an adjudicator that the record at issue was a confidential religious summary prepared by a committee of 3 congregation elders pertaining to spiritual status decisions, the judgment says. And in June of 2022, the OIPC adjudicator ordered the congregations to turn over their records for review. And they in turn filed a petition for a judicial review, alleging that the Personal Information Protection Act is unconstitutional. And that's what the JW.org lawyers are doing all over the world. So it's about time that the judges are just throwing that out. And this sets some good precedent for here in Canada. Now, the BC Supreme Court Justice Stephen Wilson rejected the constitutional challenge to the Personal Information Protection Act earlier this week. The church argued that the JWs argued that the religion should be included in the Exemption Act, says the organizations are not required to disclose someone's personal information to them if it has been collected solely for journalistic, artistic, or literary purposes. So the judge described that as a bridge too far. Reading in such an exemption would significantly compromise the government's objective in giving individuals the ability to control their personal information, Wilson wrote. So he pointed out that even under the current exemption, the Privacy Commissioner still has the power to review the requested information to see if it truly was collected for the purpose of journalism, art, or literature. So good on them. So the Jehovah's Witnesses had also argued that if the documents were disclosed, that they might be published more widely for the purpose of mocking either the petitioners, which is the elders and the Watchtower Society, causing unnecessary embarrassment. You see, this is what's going on. The Watchtower is just worried about embarrassment because all of these files are full of so many embarrassing things. And when you think of it, you want to violate human rights? Get yourself in front of three bully elders. I've watched my underage daughter go in front of three bully elders. And it's not nice. They are bullies, and you cannot pull in other people to support you. And when this stuff comes out into the public, this is how we expose what's going on behind the closed doors of the Watchtower. So thanks to everyone for all your support, for all your help in exposing the Watchtower. Thanks to the Humanists Association in BC, and thanks to the BC Supreme Court. So that's all I have for you today, folks. And until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now. Thanks again for watching. We appreciate your comments, your dislikes, and your likes. If you would like to support the channel, just press join and buy us a coffee once a month. Until next time, keep dancing, smiling, laughing, and most of all, keep loving those around you. And have a great day.
Produced by Fixing My Faith.